Hello. Today I'm going to be discussing the story of Edgar Sawtelle. This book was written by David Wroblewski and published in 2008. This novel is about a boy who can't speak and communicates through sign, and it is essentially a retelling of Shakespeare's Hamlet, but is based in Wisconsin. The three foster elements I'm going to be focusing on are symbols, seasons, and disabilities. The first symbol I'm going to discuss is the syringe, and it is symbolic because it is associated with Claude, who plays a major role in the story. At one point, Edgar sees Claude using a syringe with a dog who had just gone into a fight. The next time Edgar sees a syringe, it was when he saw his father in the rain. Edgar's father then leads him to search for the syringe in the barn. After Edgar finds it, it is revealed that it was in fact Claude who was responsible for Gar's death. Edgar confirms his accusation by teaching the dogs to tag each other with syringes and fall to the ground. As a result, Claude's guilt is exposed and creates a major conflict between the characters. Therefore, it is evident that the syringe is symbolic because it represents Claude's guilt as well as confirms his identity as his brother's murderer. The second symbol is the cloud of smoke that takes the form of Edgar's father when the barn catches on fire. The barn begins to burn while Claude and Edgar are inside as Edgar is trying to save the dog Files. However, Claude has hidden a bottle of poison with the Files. Therefore, he pretends to help Edgar with the papers when he is really trying to hide the bottle from him. Before Claude can escape from the burning barn, the barn begins to fill with smoke and takes shape of Gar. It is almost as if Gar is trying to keep Claude from escaping the barn. The smoke represents Gar's anger towards his brother, and it is his form of getting justice after his death. The second element I'm going to discuss is the significance of seasons. The first example is when Edgar's father passes away, which takes place during the winter time. Winter signifies death and sadness. This can be seen when Trudy is arranging for Gar's burial and the ground is frozen. This creates a sense of numbness and coldness due to their tragic loss. The frozen ground can represent the lack of movement, as if Trudy and Edgar were trapped in this unfortunate moment in their lives, and as if time stopped and everything was still. The wintertime emphasizes the toll Gar's death had on Trudy and Edgar and the difficulty they faced when grieving. The second example is the storm that occurs during late spring and early summer. Spring and summer are both seasons that represent a new beginning, warmth, and happiness. Therefore, when a storm takes place during this time, it is ironic and essentially causes disruption in their lives. Also, right after the storm takes place, Claude arrives, which could indicate that Claude's arrival is equivalent to the storm that occurs during a time of peace. Before Claude's arrival, Gar, Trudy, and Edgar were living in peace, but after he arrived, there were more conflicts and disruptions. The third and final element that I'm going to discuss is the significance of disabilities. Although Edgar can communicate through sign, one instance where his inability to verbally communicate holds him back is when he needed to talk to the 911 dispatcher when his father was dying. This incident caused Edgar to feel frustrated and helpless because he could not help his father fast enough. After his father died, Edgar felt vulnerable but also was determined to find answers about his father's death. The second example is the fact that Edgar is mute means that he's sometimes unable to communicate with certain people. One of the main people Edgar cannot communicate with is Claude. The lack of understanding between Edgar and Claude indicates a disconnect between them. However, there is not only a disconnect regarding communication, but there's also a disconnect when it comes to how things are managed around the house and even their relationships with Trudy. Overall, the story of Edgar Sawtelle has a number of elements that are discussed in Foster's book. However, symbols, seasons, and disabilities are a few that highlight the main points of this novel.